Hello. I want to do a short presentation today. I want to talk a little bit about the rest of this lunar month, the rest of October, up through the American presidential election on November 5th. There are going to be some interesting influences over the next few weeks, some good, some bad. And let me see if I can share my screen and we can talk about all of this. Okay, I've got to get rid of a few panels here so that I can see what I'm doing. So just bear with me for a minute. And let's see, I've got to get back to the beginning of this. Hold on a second. Okay, and now we're here. This is titled The Bad, the Good, and the Maybe. The last 3 weeks of October and the American presidential election. I call it the bad because there are going to be some very significant hard aspects, astrologically speaking. I call it the good because there are also some very serious trines and sextiles, the soft or good aspects, as we call them. And I call this the maybe because I don't know which path people are going to choose to take. Basically, we're at a certain sort of crossroads for the next 3 or 4 weeks. I'm doing this presentation on October 7th. The first quarter moon is on October 10th. So from that first quarter moon through the presidential election on November 5th, it's hard to say uh, which direction people are going to take. As I always say, astrology is just a weather map. It tells us what the weather is, if a hurricane is approaching and what path it will probably take. What it doesn't tell us is what decisions people will make as a result of that information or that influence. Consequently, astrology is always only half of the equation. The other half is our own free will and the decisions that we make based upon that information or those influences. So, next 3 weeks, we have very good influences. We have very bad or tense influences. But what people will decide to do in response to that, I don't know. But let's take a look at the bad, followed by the good, and then we'll say another word or two about the maybe. Okay, now at the first quarter moon on October 10th, the main tense aspect here is Mars square Chiron. This is probably going to bring about the worst of Chiron. And since we have Sun in opposition to Chiron squaring Mars, Moon in opposition to Mars square Sun and Chiron, we have a grand cross here. And the Sun and Moon are just going to exacerbate these tensions and make it more personal. So, in the week following the first quarter moon, I'm rather expecting some kind of wounding or violence to occur. This could happen as a result of war, could also happen as a result of climate change or natural disasters. Or it could be aggression and wounding taking place in some other area of life besides those that I just mentioned. Now, when we get to the full moon on October 17th, things don't look much better. We still have Sun in opposition to Chiron, and Chiron is still being squared by Mars, but now the moon is joining in a different way. It's in conjunction with Chiron, and Pluto is beginning to square these planets and be in opposition to Mars. This opposition from Mars to Pluto, that is going to become exact on November 3rd of 2024, just 2 days before the American presidential election, and just 2 days after the November new moon. So, again, in the week following the new moon, I also expect to see some wounding and some aggression taking place. That seems quite likely. Now, when we get to the third quarter moon, we're at least down to a T-square, but the moon is now conjunct Mars. So the moon has been involved with Chiron and Mars all this time, first being in opposition to Mars and squaring Chiron, then being in conjunction with Chiron and squaring Mars, and now it is conjunct Mars and still weakly squaring Chiron, but it's much more strongly in opposition to Pluto, and both sides of this opposition are being squared by the sun. Again, we got a lot of tensions. We got a lot of tensions involving Mars, Chiron, and now Pluto. It is coming into and has been coming into the picture a little bit more strongly since that full moon. So the last 3 weeks of October could see a lot of aggression and war in parts of the world, a lot of tension. When we get to the new moon on November 1st, well, the main thing here is that Mars opposite Pluto. We have a few other aspects, but this one I think is the one that is most serious, the most worthy of our attention. And remember, this is just 2 days before that opposition uh, becomes exact. So, being so close to being exact at the time of the full moon, that is going to intensify its influence. And its influence by itself is not that great. This is can be aggression and destruction. Things could not be too good. But if we go back to the first quarter moon and look at the good aspects, just as we're having bad aspects or hard aspects that are a little bit more tense than usual, our good aspects are going to be better than usual too. And one of the things we're seeing here is what some call a mini grand trine being formed by Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. A mini grand trine, that's when two of the planets are sextile each other, but the third side of our triangle is a grand trine. This configuration has been forming off and on for at least a year, and it's going to become stronger over the next 2 or 3 years. Now, what does this represent? Well, whenever you have trines or sextiles between planets, that means that those planetary drives can function together well in a coordinated manner. But what are these planetary drives in particular? Well, Uranus is this drive to break up the existing pattern. It's connected with creativity. Neptune dissolves the boundaries. It's connected with oneness and mysticism, meditation in its better aspects, and higher inspiration, let's say. Pluto is like the phoenix rising from the ashes. It's death and transformation, death and rebirth. So, what has begun and what will get stronger over the next few years is that many people are looking for a new way forward. We're looking for some better, more transcendent way to live and function as human beings. Okay? Now, some are going to be very consciously aware of these influences. Others will experience these influences, but be only subconsciously aware of them. So, nonetheless, this mini grand trine with Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, it's nudging us all toward a better and more transcendent world, a new way of being. It wants us to turn the page and do things differently. And in support of that, we have Jupiter making a strong sextile to Chiron. Now, most astrologers will associate Chiron with just with wounding, sometimes also healing. But my experience and the experience of some other astrologers of Chiron, both personally and by doing historical reviews, is that what Chiron is really about is it wants to bring us from the visible world into the invisible world. It nudges us toward a more transcendent reality, a reality which is filled with greater joy. Uh, but not everyone is ready for such intense joy. And when their Saturnian hard shells have to first be cracked for that light to enter, that's where the wounding comes in. But when you get a conjunction or sextile of Jupiter with Chiron, that tends to bring out the joyous, more transcendent side of Chiron. And thus, it's no surprise to me that this fall, where we have the sextile between Jupiter and Chiron so strong, it's no surprise to me that the Harris campaign has begun to call for a politics of joy. They say that they want to bring joy back into people's lives, and they will work toward that kind of spiritual joy. Okay, now at the full moon on October 17th, we have a lot of beneficial aspects. We've got three mini grand trines here, four if you count the lunar nodes. This one is also part of a mini grand trine. Uh, and we also still have Chiron, very strongly sextile Jupiter, but Jupiter at the same time is making a strong sextile to the moon, which is conjunct Chiron. So this is an awful lot of harmony for this or any day in history. We got a lot of trines and sextiles, multiple mini grand trines. We have a regular grand trine forming here with Mars, Neptune, and Venus. And we have Jupiter, sextile Chiron, bringing about the sweet, healing, joyous, transcendent side of Chiron. And with the moon, conjunct Chiron, uh, its emphasis is even greater. All right, if we move on to the third quarter moon, still a lot of the same stuff going on. We still have a mini grand trine with Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and Mars, Uranus, and Neptune. Uh, and if I use the moon and the nodes, we have another grand trine between moon. I don't have it circled here, but if I apply it to the nodes and to Venus, I'm completing that grand trine, and Neptune is making a trine not only to Mars, but also to the moon. Okay, and then of course we also have this very strong sextile between Jupiter and Chiron. So, a lot of good stuff going on. When we get to November 1st, the next new moon, the November new moon, well, we've got a mini grand trine here with Mercury, Neptune, and Pluto. We've got that mini grand trine with Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. We still have the mini grand trine between Mars, Uranus, and Neptune. We have what's called a mystic rectangle here. Four planets making a sextile, trine, sextile, and trine. And of course, we still have a very strong sextile between Jupiter and Chiron. So, just looking at the squares and the sextiles, the squares, oppositions, sextiles, and trines from the first quarter moon in October up to the next new moon on November 1st, we're at a crossroads. We have both a lot of tension and a lot of harmony simultaneously. And that means we have a choice before us. We can choose the hard path or we can choose the easy path. We can choose a path of conflict and fighting and destruction, or we can choose a path of healing and new ideas and transcendence and moving forward into the future. Now, on America's Election Day, November 5th, which is also Guy Fawkes Day in the United Kingdom, we also have some tensions and some good things going on. The main tension, of course, is still Mars in opposition to Pluto, 2 days after the exact opposition. We also have Jupiter in opposition to Venus and the Moon, and Neptune is making a square to Venus and the Moon. Now, the impact of Neptune, particularly on Americans who are voting this day, is this can produce an awful lot of misinformation designed to appeal not to people's logical left brain ruled by Mercury, but to their more intuitive, feeling oriented, nonverbal right brain represented by Venus. So there will be a barrage of ads and attacks aimed at appealing to people's gut emotions to get them to vote one way or another. That, of course, will be happening in America. And there could be other confusion, other misinformation in other parts of the world too. I don't usually do weather astrology, but whenever things are involved with Neptune, particularly Neptune in Pisces or any water sign, I've heard people who are more knowledgeable in that field of astrology talk about storms and floodings that could occur. And I think that would also encompass wind damage, since Neptune rules things with ambiguous boundaries, and the wind, as well as the water, they both have ambiguous, not clearly defined boundaries. Okay, so there will be that tension going on November 5th, but again, the Mars Pluto opposition peaks 2 days earlier. Now, we also have a lot of these good aspects still present on November 5th. Let's see, we've got some mini grand trines in here still, at least three of them. We have a grand trine involved, and we still have Jupiter very, very strongly making that sextile to Chiron. So, as I've said, from the first quarter moon in October up through November 5th, 2024, people in America and around the world are presented with a choice. You can choose a path of destruction, or you can choose a path of healing and transcendence. And it's interesting that I should characterize these next few weeks in terms of a choice, because that is exactly what is being made on Election Day in America on November 5th. And with more and more people voting early these days by mail, taking advantage of that feature of our political system in America, we are going to have people making choices all the way from October 10th up through November 5th. Okay, now if we look at both the hard aspects and soft aspects for America, on Election Day, the thing that I worry the most about is this conjunction of Jupiter with Mars. Okay, now this is actually going to be applying since Jupiter is moving retrograde. And whenever Mars is stimulated in the USA chart, I prefer the no, let's see, the July 2nd, 1776 chart. That is the day that the resolution for independence was passed by the Continental Congress. November 4th is the day that it was distributed to the people. But regardless of which one you use, you're going to have Jupiter in conjunction with Mars. And that could magnify some violence or aggression in America around this time. And the July 4th chart, such as the Sibley chart, this conjunction will be exact slightly before Election Day, using the July 2nd, 1776 chart for America, exact a few days after the election. Now, we also have Venus making a square to natal Neptune. Venus moves pretty quickly. The square is not going to last. But the reason it concerns me is because the American Civil War began on a day that transiting Neptune was making a square to natal Venus. So this square from transiting Venus to natal Neptune is going to resonate with that a bit. That can add to some aggressiveness and possible violence on and around Election Day in America. And the last thing I have circled here is the lunar nodes are making a square to natal Jupiter, which itself is conjunct the midheaven. Midheaven. Now, Jupiter always expands things. It's all about growth. The lunar nodes intensify things. So there is going to be some sort of intense energy on this day, which is going to be magnified by Jupiter. And we could even see things spill over into violence. Okay, let me get a quick sip of water here. If we look at the good aspects for America on Election Day, well, here are the main ones. We have Uranus trine Pluto and transiting Neptune is sextile Pluto. Natal Pluto and transiting Uranus and Neptune are making their own mini grand trine, which mirrors the one being made by just the transiting planets. So this new transcendent energy that is trying to come into the planet, it wants to really, I believe, originate in America. That would be its best bet because we're repeating the same kind of mini grand trine using natal Pluto and America's chart. So this is what these planetary influences are nudging us towards some kind of new world order, if you will, some new view, new way of looking at things, some more transcendent vision, which is currently lacking in the world and in America today. Now, the other thing which is very, very strong is transiting Jupiter is sextile natal Chiron in the USA chart. And you can see that transiting Chiron is almost exactly conjunct natal Chiron. This conjunction will be exact a few days later. I think it may be November 9th that it is exact, but this will be the second of 3 Chiron returns that America is going through. The third one will happen, I believe, in February of 2025. Could be January, but I think it's February. Either way, Under these Chiron returns, America often undergoes some political wounding. Some of its failings politically as a country are revealed so that we can heal those things. But we also get more transcendence in the country among a few and healing among others. So these are very beneficial influences for America. The stars are trying to bring in a greater perspective, a more transcendent way of looking at things. And so a lot of people are tired of the way politics and many other things in the country have been going. They want something new, something different. And many people will want to heal at this point and bring the country back together. And many people want this more transcendent joy to be in their lives. So we have these very, very good aspects by transit going on for America. At the same time, that some very harsh aspects by transit are occurring. Okay, it looks like that is the end of the slideshow. So let me stop sharing here. And I'm back. So that's it. This is a very interesting time these next 3 weeks. I'm not saying these are the most important 3 weeks of the century or the millennia or anything like that. I'm just saying the next 3 weeks approximately, they are presenting America in particular and humanity in general with a choice. We have very good aspects going on, we have very bad aspects going on. So, what has been placed before us is the blessing and the curse, life and death. And hopefully, we will choose life. But because I don't know what choices people will make, I don't know what the future will be. Will it be good? Maybe. Will it be bad? Maybe that also. Undoubtedly, some people are going to choose uh, a good path going forward, and other people are going to choose a more destructive path. But this is a fork in the road. This is a time of choice for all of us and for America in particular. And if we make good choices, then the future that follows is going to be easier. If we make bad choices, it's going to be like flunking a test at school. You now need to work even harder in order to do well or to simply pass the course. So I'm hoping that we pass this test with flying colors. I hope that we all choose blessing and choose life instead of the curse and death. And maybe by the end of this year or sooner, we'll know what choices America has made and what choices humanity has made. I just hope we all make the good choice and choose life. So, interesting time that we're in. But that's it for now. So think about these things. We have uh, an interesting 3 weeks or so coming up, and we'll probably get a little bit of both, some of the good and some of the bad. But what's uncertain, most uncertain, is whether the good will predominate in the long run or the bad. So, once again, I say choose life, choose a blessing for yourself and others. That will make everything easier going ahead. I understand that sometimes conflict may be inevitable. Sometimes engaging in conflict is what we need to do to stop the destruction and choose life. But I won't get into deep debates about uh, right and wrong with that can get very complicated philosophically. But just on a personal level, again, choose life. And the more of us that do that, the better things will be going forward. And if we open ourselves up to these new ideas, new ways of thinking, new ways of doing things, new transcendence, then we'll have a good future ahead. And we will get there one way or another. It's just a matter of whether we're going to get there easily or with great difficulty. Okay, well, that's it for now. So I'll just say so long and be well.